Hi, everyone. Welcome to Figuring Out Fabric, where I ask dumb questions and you get smart answers. And I have here one of my favorite people, Steph Locke.
Mm,
And Steph has had a very interesting career arc because what I originally know her for is she was for a long time trying to straddle two different communities, the SQL Server community and then the R community. I think you were involved with some of the R days kind of stuff and all of that. And then were you the primary founder for Nightingale Data? Or what was the yeah, yeah. So that's what I thought of you about. And then when I asked you to come on the show, I feel like I had a vague sense that you were working at Microsoft, but I
mm.
didn't realize that you were kind of more, I don't know the term, back office, or you weren't maybe slinging as much code as maybe you used to be. Um, but I think this makes will make for a very interesting episode as we kind of talk about both your career transition and how the markets shift, because I keep posting my keeping up with technology talk from group buy back, when you were involved and all that kind of stuff. And I was talking about Hadoop, which is way out of vogue. Um, and how ours kinda shifted in popularity, but then how, you and your team are starting to take advantage of Power BI and Fabric. So I think this will be an interesting episode.
Yeah, but very happy to be here, as you said. Yeah, I've had an interesting career. I kind of joke that I moved sideways and upwards, kind
Yeah.
of following my passions. So yeah, I started out Excel. I used to be able to
Mm.
write a mean macro. Then I picked up SQL Server on the BI stack, asking those questions at like 21. What's this 127001 I keep seeing in my logs, and kind of like coming from a complete non-tech
Oh, sure,
background
sure.
into these things. Then picking up the machine learning and everything and doing some really cool industry uh breaking stuff. Like I was doing real-time machine learning APIs in 2013.
Oh,
Back when
wow.
I was having to write, we were doing XML, I was using, Linux, WCGI, hosting and building my own VMs and
Yeah.
everything to make that happen, through to then, Lock Data, kinda doing data science consultancy, and a lot of that was helping organizations, whether it was open source or in the SQL stack, really think about how do we organize our teams and our Azure and all our different technologies to be able to get the right outcomes. I think the
Right.
only work that I actually did on doing data science, rather than the kind of the enablement piece, was for Brent Oza on
Yeah.
helping target his emails better, as segmentation, which
He
was
he
really
mentioned
fun.
you in the past, so yeah. Yeah, yeah. Um,
And then,
that's
yeah, Nightingale was, I didn't like being the chief billable resource of a consultancy, the principal consultant, and and trying to scale the business with,
oh, it's
like, 10
awful.
people. Trying to do 2 hat wear 2 major hats at once was awful. So I thought, let's make a software startup. That sounds like an easier idea. It was not easy.
Yeah, make
It
all that
was
money
not
in
easy.
SaaS. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Did that through COVID, kinda kept everybody alive, employed, healthy,
Yeah.
and by that point, I was, very burnt out and thinking about, "Hey, I need to do something different." And so I thought, "You know what? Sounds like an easy challenge. Let's go work at Microsoft. That'll help me get out of burnout." So I started with, in the field organization. So not product managers and
Mhm.
kind of like all the shiny people at court, but actually like how do we as Microsoft go help people um make a difference?
Great.
And I didn't actually join our data and AI
Mhm.
area. I joined our digital and app innovation space because I describe it as we help people make business value faster, better, and safer. And for me, there's always been a strong overlap between my data expertise and why find data and AI so powerful, and software engineering, and
Right.
how do tech teams deliver cohesively across their entire tech stack and approach for value. So, kind of joined on effectively a little bit of the consultants-ish side,
Yeah, yeah.
and now for my sins, I lead a pre-sales team. So I'm technically now in sales and marketing, but I still wear hoodies, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, I'm on the techie part of the team. So yeah, that's where I am now, and yeah, it's been
That's
interesting
that's
over
an
the years.
interesting arc, and there's a couple things I wanna kinda tease out of that, because I think your
Yeah.
career path, um, I think it runs against a lot of the mythos of data science.
Mm.
So, let me talk a little about kind of my experience with air quotes data science and some of the frustration. And I think what you talk about fits with some of that. So first, I'm kind of surprised that it sounds like maybe not accidented your way into it, but certainly it was a growth pattern for you because every time I would look into data science, it felt like I needed graduate level statistics to really be able to pull it off. And the analogy that I always use, my husband's a pharmacy tech and he works with a pharmacist. Now, they both count pills, they
Oh.
both learn things about medicine, but a pharmacist is a doctor. And so they're looking at years and years of study, accreditation, all of this stuff, and they get paid a lot of money, but it's stressful. You might be working long hours, you might be managing people, all this kind of stuff. The pharmacy technician, so states vary, some require a certification. In Pennsylvania, you do not have to be certified. You literally, and this is what happened with Miles, you can roll up in off the street and you just have to report to the state within 90 days that you're a pharmacy tech. So Miles had worked in Walmart already, in I think the term soft lanes, but basically just inventory. And then there was an opening, he applied, didn't get it, applied later, got it, and he's had a pretty happy and successful career for the past 6 or 8 years, but he didn't have to have any prior training. There's continuing ed, all that kind of stuff. And the reason I bring all this up is I think a lot of us fell for that hype wave in like 2013, whenever it was. And what I feel like, and you were never like this. I appreciate like you wrote books and you were pretty straightforward about this stuff. But there were so many people telling us we could become pharmacists when really they were teaching us how to be pharmacy tech, right? And same thing. So that's is the analogy. So many people said, "Oh, you can make six figures, high six figures, become a data scientist." And really, you look at the boot camps, and it's like you've taught me to become a data science technician. And so it's just interesting to hear that so much of the stuff that you ended up doing as an air quotes data scientist was really this data janitor that was making the path smooth, right? Does that feel like kind of an accurate assessment of some of that stuff? Again, I'm coming totally from the outside, but I got excited and then I'm like, no, I can't, I'm not going to memorize T tests. It's not happening for me.
Yeah, it's uh, my highest IT qualification is I got when I was 16.
Mhm.
I have my bachelor's degree is in philosophy. I dropped the pure maths piece.
Yeah.
I joke that this helps me solve problems and bullshit well,
Yeah.
which is 2 key skills for a consultant.
Oh, no, no, no.
Um,
I've been at my last job, my boss told me a consultant's job is to tell someone they're an idiot and have them say thank you. And far too many people are good at part 1, but they never master part 2. So it makes perfect sense.
yeah. And I think for me, one of the things that I've always been focused on, and it was kind of some of the theme for the startup and everything, is not I never wanted to do cutting edge research, partly because
Right.
I am not equipped to go and sit in a room and just like think and work at a problem for 6 months.
You're
I'm
not
like,
meant for the
I
ivory
want to see
tower
a
and thinking
result
deep thoughts. Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And so the commoditization piece of statistics and machine learning has always been the thing that I like to focus on. And
Mm,
that was part of the problem with a lot of the data science rhetoric pieces was
right.
there's a place for research where you absolutely need to know and should know like the ins and outs of creating algorithms, of understanding the maths and
Right.
being able to completely like um do all that research from very beginning to end to be able to build a new model, a new capability. So things like large language models. I I'm not interested in creating the large language models. But then we've got the commoditization piece. The how do we take some of these capabilities and be able to use them for business value?
Yeah.
And what that like I do vacillate on how good at maths do you need to be for this. But I think you do need to be able to understand a deep, you should be absolutely comfortable with like how a linear regression works. You
Yeah.
need to be able to understand squared numbers and this concept of error and all these different things, right? So you do need to be able to pick that stuff up. But the value of a data scientist in most organizations isn't deep technical knowledge about how the machine learning algorithms work. It's on that excellent formation of a business problem
Yes.
and translating it to a meaningful solution that can be
Right.
done in the reasonable amount of time, cash, and effort that the value will meet the kinda, upfront investment the company is
Right.
willing to pay.
It's that applied data science. And so like to use kind of an analogy, uh, you know, we don't care about the people who can invert a linked list or a binary tree or any of that kind of stuff. And honestly, a lot of the algorithms you really need, like you can get pretty far with decision trees and basic regressions, right? The challenge is one, like you said, how do we get ROI? It's having enough wisdom and prudence to be like, yes, we absolutely could turn every single thing into a data set feature and throw it into a big thing, but is that going to help us? A great
How are we
example.
gonna get the data from 10 different systems to be next to each other in a sensible way?
Yeah,
Like, we
because
can't
you
even
can,
get 5 systems in most organizations talking to each other.
well, and you can get, I get frustrated because you can get highly predictive, high R correlation results for things that no one cares about. So I'll give you a perfect example. So before my old comms professor passed away, he would have me come in to his class for I think it was like research or web design or whatever, some sort of marketing kind of thing or a bit of both. And um, he would have me give them the students access to my Google Analytics for a couple weeks before I came in. I'd talk about my business, and they were supposed to advise me what to do with my website.
Mhm.
And usually, like 1 out of 5 of the students would just nail it, but then the rest would have the most superficial correlations because they would look at the analytics and be like, well, you have a lot of viewers from India. So that must mean that your blog is really popular in India and you should translate it to native Indian languages, right?
Right.
And like it's super easy to make a machine learning algorithm that'll tell you the same exact thing. But if you don't have the business context or the world context, understand that, well, most people in India speak English. And yes,
It
I'd probably
wouldn't
get a
be
lot
on
of,
the websites if they
yeah,
didn't.
yeah, right. But also, if I'm getting a lot of views, part of it's because India is a huge country. And so, like, you fall into the Bayes fallacy of like, oh, well, there's like, what's the denominator? Don't worry about the numerator. What's the denominator? And so I think it's so easy to make something that's got an R coefficient of 0.999 or a p value of less than 0.01 or whatever, and it tells you nothing useful. Um,
Mhm.
for the math part, I think the part where I ran into a brick wall is I think a lot of the algorithms and stuff really simple. Like it was not hard to use Azure Machine Learning Studio and click some stuff and get something that looked interesting. The hard part in my mind, thing is scared me off was the self-validation. Because when I'm writing code, if it's a static language, it compiles. If I'm running a scripted language like Python, I'll still usually get an error if I screwed up. And if I'm doing ETL, usually I can look at the data and be like, okay, does it say rutabaga where it should have a date? But the data science stuff scared me so much because I have to start learning about rock, and it's not a big bird from like the Middle East. I have to learn about AUC. Like I have to learn deeply these diagnostic tools, and I have to develop judgment. And so it's not necessarily super complicated math, but that discernment just kind of scared me off on the idea.
I do appreciate, though, that you recognize that it required diligence in learning,
Yeah.
and instead of going, "Eh, I can't be bothered. I'm just gonna do it anyway," and hit publish, you went, "Let's maybe get a professional, somebody who knows a bit more to go do it instead."
Right.
Because that's definitely where I kind of come down on some of this is, and it's a lot of the challenge around commoditization is the more you commoditize something and make it easier for people to use, if
Right.
they don't have the right guardrails around them, then it can be really dangerous. Like a car. A car is an amazing vehicle, but if you're not qualified to use it, then you're going to be a problem. And we kinda have that with data science, like, if and it's one of these perennial challenges, even with, like, data engineering capabilities, web
Yeah.
development, is what is the safety rails around people to make sure that we get, less bad outcomes on overall.
Well, and it's gotten worse with large language models because I haven't had to deal with any of this around machine learning, but I regularly either answer questions on Reddit or have customers that I'm trying to help that will start with ChatGPT, or yesterday for the first time, a customer that was using Gemini. And the thing is, as you're well aware, LLMs do best when you have a high quality, large corpus of text to draw from. So it's pretty good at Python. It's been optimized for that. There's tons of GitHub projects that it's scraped. DAX is not a large corpus. And I can tell you most of the DAX out there is from forums and it is not high quality. And so with LLMs, it's easier than ever to write bad machine learning code, bad regression. Like I'm sure it can make Spark notebooks, Jupyter notebooks in an instant and they compile, I'm sure. But are the results any good? I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is, and I was talking about this from another angle on, a neurodiversity panel on
Mm,
Friday. The generative AI pieces are fantastic because they help us never start from a blank page,
exactly.
right?
It
You're not
fixes writer's
sitting
block.
there.
It
Yeah.
fixes the blank
It
canvas issue
yeah,
100%. Yes.
gets you going. N you shouldn't ever think it's gonna be 100% correct and kind of go, "Yeah, I'm gonna ship
Yeah,
that."
it's Stack Overflow, but
Yeah,
drunk, and you
yeah,
should treat it as such.
yeah. And it's, I used to describe it, and still kind of think about it as the same with ordinarily like linear regression. You get the average behavior, right? Like, so it's looked at all these open source
Yes.
repos. Some are
Yes.
terrible. They're the first year,
Reversion
there's
to the
people first,
mean.
hello
Yes.
world. Yeah, and then you've got some great ones. And it tends to that average. And so if you're a senior developer, the value or senior engineer, the value you're gonna get is from it doing a load of the setup work for you
The
and
boilerplate.
getting over the white page.
Yeah.
For people who are just starting, it's who are beginner level, average isn't so bad and can help them get closer to the average
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. So that's really the way that we kind of need to think about it is like, where's your current skill set and how is that going to compare to the
Yeah.
LLM to define how you get the value from it?
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes, but there was a talk from, I think, NDC, some European conference, about how, why your AI abstract got rejected, and there was a beautiful quote that average is mediocre, right? So we've made it two-thirds away through the podcast without even talking about Fabric, so let's pivot a little bit. Um, and I'd love for you to talk about your experience with the team about trying to adopt some of this stuff with whether it's Fabric or Power BI, but also I think it's kind of funny how data science has fallen out of vogue and now data engineering is the big thing. And even Fabric has forced me to start learning data engineering. There was, speaking of Brent Ozar, in his newsletter, there was a Reddit thing where it's like data scientists are asking for like scraps of food and data engineers are making all this money and stuff. So what has some of that adoption kind of looked like for your team in practice?
Yeah, so it's been that kind of aspect has been quite validating. Cause like when I was at so many SQL conferences and people were asking me about getting into data science, I'm like, fundamentally, the biggest challenge with data science is not creating models.
It's the
It
data.
is getting the data to be able to make the model and then getting the data real time to be able to make predictions.
Yeah.
These are the two key parts of it.
Yeah.
So I see like, I'm focusing a lot more these days on that later challenge of how do we get data and applications to be able to integrate with AI and machine
Yeah.
learning to be able to actually make it real, get it into the user interface, and kind of have it predicting. But Fabric is all about solving that back end challenge of how do I get the different data sets next to each other
Yeah. We
semantically close enough in meaning as well to be able to get that meaningful preparatory step to go and make models.
Yeah, at the time of this recording, the episode with Kellen Gorman just came out, and we talked about how so much of the challenge is just getting the data from your air quotes legacy systems, i.e., relational databases, into Fabric and getting that information co-located and talking to each other. And you use the word AI, and so I don't want to assume that means LMs because you're talking about machine learning and stuff, but it really is garbage in, garbage out in all cases. And Chris Webb has a number of posts about making use of Power BI Copilot. And it's funny how much of that stuff is, well, have you defined synonyms? Have you defined sort columns? All of this stuff, because LLMs are so gullible. And a lot of it's just guessing based on context. And so if the context is awful, they're not going to know. And so it's funny, but like you hear constantly about data science, and I think it's true for data engineering. 80% of the work is just data cleansing. It's
Yeah.
not the cool stuff that's in the movies.
No, it's not the hacking montage, it's all the prep work,
Yeah,
getting all
yeah, yeah. It's not
getting it
like, oh wait, I got to pick the right polynomial regression, and then we'll solve everything. It's like, why like this happened to me.
what
I
does
was
this
migrating to
WC8910 column mean, and why is it always this value?
yeah. Why did the user start reusing the URL column as an email column? Had that happen to me. It's not
Yeah.
documented anywhere.
No. Yeah, it's that kind of thing, right? Like, yeah, absolutely, and I think it's no matter what we do as technologists of any flavor of what we do,
Yeah.
no matter how much AI is gonna be able to help us with the writing code and even the kind of the doing some of the extracting of meaning from whatever we're involved in. It's the people and processes pieces that we as humans will always need to be good at and use to translate business problems to
Right.
meaningful solutions. Because to your point about garbage in, garbage out, it's the quality of our instructions, our clarity of understanding that guides the quality of the solution.
Right. That's why I'm not too worried about being replaced by an LLM. Like, there's some things that it's gonna be phenomenal about, but it's not gonna be able to solve that garbage in, garbage out problem by itself, you know? So how is your I mean, Fabric's a lot. How's your team kind of adjusting to it, or what are they doing to keep up with this big shift?
Yeah, so, like, first up, as a team of folks who mostly focus on kinda some of the software and the AI side,
Yeah.
we're also users of the system, and
Yeah.
Microsoft is always customer 0. We test everything,
Yes.
which I really enjoy because I love being on the bleeding edge. It's gonna make me rage, it's gonna make me cry, but I'm gonna play with everything and I'm gonna work out uh, how do I get that business value better?
Right.
And so some of the things that we've been working through is as we've been moving to Fabric, we have a lot of our report stack that's built by Corp. Um, the data sets have been changing under that as they've been moving to semantic models and kind of the one lake. And I've been, uh, as the resident Power BI guru, taking taking some of those models and having to do and this is horrible, I had to put in a calculated column to be able to solve something as minimally as possible. So my
Sure.
report
No,
is
no, I
super
look, I
slow,
don't judge.
but it gets the job done.
I wrote a blog post against Power BI dogma. I think that we should explain to people why certain things are maybe worst
Mhm.
practices, but a professional who
Yeah,
knows what she's doing should be fine to break
yeah.
the rules occasionally, is my
In the
opinion.
absence of a better solution, a calculated column was the answer.
Well, and like, not to digress too much, but in the first episode with Christina Ferris, we talked about how, okay, maybe data flows, Gen 2 data flows are expensive, but the most expensive ETL is a project failure. And presumably, I would hope you're paid well. And so your time's expensive. And so it may be that doing it the quick and dirty way solves the business problem, and you doing it the air quotes right way maybe costs thousands of dollars because it involves re-architecting. And so there's always
Mm.
trade-offs that we have to
Yeah.
accept.
Yeah, so we're in that kind of situation where we're starting to leverage the tools and see how some of
Right.
it's changing. But then on the other side, as people who are more focused on um, people's like software that they're writing
Mhm.
primarily in organizations and their DevOps and kind of their platform engineering pieces. There's a few places that Fabric is starting to make inroads for us. One is the enterprise integration stack. So you
Yeah.
need systems to talk to each other.
Yep.
And you often need the systems to talk to each other in real time to be able to get information from system A
Oh,
over into
interesting.
system
Yeah.
B as part of a business process. And we kind of used to use SQL Server integration services and Service Bus, Service Fabric, Service Bus.
Service Fabric sounds
Is
right. Yeah.
talk.
Or
That's it.
Service Bus?
Service
Service
Fabric
Bus.
was a different thing. Service
Yeah,
Bus
I
was the
know. Yeah, yeah, but
messaging.
yeah, yeah.
So
There's
many
Azure Event
things.
Hubs, there's Service Bus. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we used to have just, like, 2 pieces of technology, one for
Yep.
batch, one for
Yep.
enterprise pieces. Then we kinda moved into Azure, and we have a whole kit box of, like, low-code solutions for real time, low code for, like, data factory,
Yep.
for batch, and we had code first solutions like
The
function, just
tragedy of
like
choice, right? Like,
yeah.
sometimes having 15 different flavors of jam means you get overwhelmed and you pick none.
Yeah. So that's been kind of the situation we've been in, and now Fabric and Microsoft goes through these phases, right? Like for a while, everything was a SQL Server thing, and then everything was a Power BI
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah.
like a Power thing, and now the kind of
Whatever
now
the cool new
everything is
hotness is
a
for them.
Fabric
Yeah, it
thing.
happens. Yeah, for sure.
It happens, right? Like it's a trend, but bringing everything into a more seamless platform where you've got like some of the capabilities to run your operational databases for your applications in
Yeah.
Fabric, to be able to do the ETL aspects, to be able to avoid ETL, and then to be able to put some of the real time processing in is an interesting position.
Yeah.
Is a new tech stack that has a load of marketing associated with it that says this is the big rosy picture. My team is kind of needing to go and work with customers on what is the reality,
Right.
what are the
You're
rough
trying to figure out,
edges.
okay, we put all these Legos, they've given us these Legos and it's far fewer than Azure, which is overwhelming and harder to fit together, but which Legos do still fit
Yeah.
together? So, yeah.
Yeah,
No, that
and
makes
which
sense.
bits are mature enough to trust your business to run on it
Right, because there's a
as
lot of stuff
well.
that's still in public preview and being updated. The CI/CD story still needs some work. So we're coming up on time. We'll have to have you on again because I'm sure we could talk for this stuff about for hours. So a couple wrap up questions for you. Um, I know you're a Microsoft employee, so just blink twice if you're not allowed to answer. But what is your favorite Fabric feature and your least favorite Fabric feature right
Mhm.
now?
My favorite Fabric feature is I'm quite liking a lot of the data set capabilities, how they're making it easier to kind of build and reuse, data models.
Oh, nice.
Although
Yeah.
that's a trend from Power BI that's coming on quite nicely kinda in the continued evolution of Fabric.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm not liking is partly a lack of understanding on my part, is the pricing model. So how do
It's a
we
challenge. Yeah.
how do customers get started cheaply, effectively, and grow it and have their prices grow with their usage? That's something I'm still not as up to date and comfortable with as I'd like. But Microsoft licensing and pricing is something that
It's never
people
been easy. I
specialize
mean,
in.
that's the thing is like trying to explain Power BI licensing was always a challenge because Microsoft would just 2-week agile sprint their way to a new model every 6 months. And so you'd have to add, it's like, oh, well, now we've got the P SKU, the EM SKU, the A SKU, Pro, Premium. And then I did a session for Data Toboggan that when this releases should hopefully be out. But I tried with no slides, just board game pieces to explain the Fabric licensing model because it extends that. Um, and it it's currently a frustration point for me and an opportunity for the community down the road of there's a lot of stuff you can MacGyver with an F2 that's only on part of the time. But someone coming from a small business isn't going to know how to do that. So as a community, we need to start building those design patterns and start explaining that grow up story. Like that's Power BI from Microsoft used to be so good about here's the grow up story. Here's how you start small and self-service and you get some centralized stuff going on, maybe you get the premium. And I think we need that for Fabric. We need the how do you go from no Fabric to I'm renting an F2 for 4 hours a night to I'm actually using an F2 to beyond.
Mhm.
So there's room for growth there for sure.
Yeah, and and partly there's another one of the features that I like about Fabric or is part of the kind of the bigger eventual nirvana state of it is the DevOps, the application lifecycle management, the
Yes.
APIs, and just being able to do stuff with my command line. Like
Yeah.
that, be able to actually, I have Power BI reports in source control now. Like this is
Yes,
woohoo.
they're taking it seriously
Yeah.
for once.
Yeah.
It's not there yet. All the Power BI stuff is in public preview again.
Mhm.
There's some rough edges with the CI/CD, but they're taking it seriously after like 5 years of everything being in a zip file.
Mhm.
They realized if we wanna sell fabric, it has to be enterprise ready, and you can't spell enterprise without CICD. The C's silent,
Yeah.
but it's in there, I promise.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's probably something that we need to think about when we think about the licensing and the approach is Power BI was always kind of the Tableau competitor
Right.
at
Yes.
when it started. It was for the individual person and grew into enterprise.
Right. It
Fabric
started as a
kind of
B2C play. The
enterprise down. Like we're trying to grow the capability for less mature, more time strapped, less resource, less money customers. Because
Right.
it's got the capacity for the big scale for customers who can get the complexity overhead, but it's the bottom half of the market
Yeah,
that is gonna be
exactly.
the growth challenge.
How do we serve the people that have 10 to 15 pro licenses? And I think that story still needs to be told. And again, if you go on the Microsoft Fabric subreddit, you see some people who are really experienced with Fabric, really clever, but it needs to be documented. Someone needs to, and maybe that'll be me, who knows, but it needs to be done. So the last question as we wrap up, there's way too many social media networks. Where can people find you? Is there anything that you want to promote, pitch? I think at one point you had a website about women's pockets. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still a thing or what.
Unfortunately, no, I've let a lot of my side projects
Ah,
go at the moment.
shameful.
Coming out of like, I was towards the tail end of COVID. My day, I got through my bullet journal of 2 items of meetings and
Yeah.
emails
Yeah, it was rough.
by going in my hot tub and having an ice cream.
Good for
That was
you. But
literally
yeah, no, I know
my
that.
day and my coping.
Yeah,
So, I've just kind of been very chill, trying to focus on doing the day job well, getting better at whole work-life balance thing. So you
good for
can
you.
find me I've just started up on Blue Sky.
Oh,
Um,
I don't know if
so
I'm following you or not, but,
yeah.
I think I'm gonna get her name wrong. She's gonna kill me. She's gonna kick me in the shins. Carrie Colasco has some starter packs, not just
Oh,
for Power BI and Fabric, but women in data. So, poke her and see if you can get added to those starter packs.
yeah. And I imagine Chrissy Lemire is probably a go-to person as well.
Yeah,
Um,
she's doing some stuff on there as well.
yeah.
I think she's writing a book
So
on AI, which for
yeah.
someone I think about PowerShell is kinda funny.
Mm. Functional programming languages can achieve a powerful lot. Yeah, so connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Um, I have been doing a lot more these days around kind of leadership and inclusion and really trying to think harder, longer, and better about how do I help people
Yeah,
at a bigger scale. And my ability to write code and solve some technical problems is not where I think I can have the most impact right
yeah,
now.
totally agreed. Alright, well, it has been a delight. 30 minutes is not enough, so I'll have to have you on again sometime, but thank you so much for your time, Steph.
Thank you so much for having me, Eugene. And yeah, season two, absolutely
Alright,
happy to guest star again.
sounds good.